Howdy, folks. It's Mr. Newfer here. It's been a few weeks since I recorded a video, so I figured I would do something that we've been talking about in class, but something that also relates to gaming. So that way we could kind of make hopefully an entertaining but also informative video for you guys in case you want to do some more with Scratch. It's been a couple weeks since I posted a video because just missing school days. We had a ice day one of the Fridays, and it's just been kind of hard to get a recording in here. So I figured we'd do this one today, and I hope it's enjoyable. It's my goal to be recording a video for you guys every Thursday or Friday, so hopefully one video a week. And as you might have seen if you've watched any of the previous videos, they'll have to do with either Scratch tutorials like today, or sometimes it'll be playing games online, or maybe some other stuff in there if I can mix it up like that. Maybe some reaction videos or something. Um, Today, it's my goal to take this game that already exists. You can see on my screen, I already have some blocks and some stuff going on. We're going to take this game and we're going to improve it by using variables. So my sixth grade students have not gotten to variables yet, but I was working with the seventh graders on this unit because they didn't get to see it last year. And we're just kind of talking about it, and it seems like you can use variables for basically everything. In fact, variables are one of the most fundamental parts of computer science, but it can be a little bit weird to understand until you've used them a few times. So let's go ahead and take this project that we have here. This is a basic egg jump game, and the game itself is quote unquote finished. It works, but we're going to go ahead and change it up to kind of make it a little bit more interactive, a little bit more fun. So let's try it out here just so you guys can see it. When we hit the green flag, eggs start rolling at us. We're going to jump over them. It's super loud. I hate how loud that was. But if you touch one, the game is over. So first thing I'm going to do, actually, this is a starter I got from Project STEM. I'm going to come in here to my egg, and I'm going to make them smaller, just a little bit. Maybe like that. I'm going to do that with this one. This just fixes the hitboxes a little bit so they're easier to jump over. We'll make that one a little bit bigger. If you are in one of my classes, I posted this for second hour, and we will talk about it when we get to Unit 5, which is our variables. So you don't have to worry about this yet, but just so you can see it, and you can use some of these things in your own Scratch games if you want to. So the first thing we're going to do, we are going to come in here and we need to make a variable. So we have a tab down here called variables right there. And in it, we could see make a variable here. And when we click that, it gives us the option to name a variable. We can make it for all sprites or just this one. We can also connect it to a cloud so it'll save data. We don't need to get into any of the cloud stuff, and we're going to make this for all sprites. I'm just going to call this one lives. So we're going to go ahead and add 3 lives to our game. And that way, after you bump into 3 eggs, you lose the game. So we have a new variable. It's hanging out in here. And because this is checked, it means it's a public variable. It's right here. We can see it. We know what's up with it. If we uncheck it, we can still manipulate the value that's in that, but it's easier to just see it here. So a variable, it's kind of like a storage box. You know, like a box that might just have a bunch of books in it, or it might have a bunch of games, or it might have a bunch of magazines. And we can label that box. So if it is full of magazines, we can name our variable magazines, and then we can put a bunch in there. This box, this variable, is called lives. So we can store the amount of lives that we have inside of the lives block. So just like that, we're going to come here and we're going to say set lives. And we're going to drag that down to our green flag button. In fact, we'll probably end up moving this here in a second to put it in its own sequence. But for right now, I just want to set lives to 3. So if we go ahead and click the green flag, you can see this variable turns to 3. But nothing happens. The game still stops when we hit an egg. So that's a great start to it. I'm going to go ahead and move this. I didn't want to make that sequence there. I want to make this its own sequence. So let me move some stuff over. And we're going to say now when our green flag is clicked, we're going to go ahead and make a sequence that can reduce the number of lives whenever we touch an egg. So we're going to say set lives to 3. And we need to use a conditional statement to do this. So we're going to grab a forever block. And we're also going to grab an if-then block. Okay? So now we need to say if we're touching egg 1 or egg 2, then we'll decrease the amount of lives we have. We'll use a little bit of pseudocode here, explaining the code in English so it helps us understand it. So we got to say if touching egg 1 if touching egg 1 or egg 2. So we're going to need our or block. And we need a touching block because we're looking for if we're touching an egg. So we'll grab 2 touching blocks, and now we can change this to say egg, and we can change this one to say egg 2. So now if it's touching either of them, just one of them at any time, then we can decrease the amount of lives. So we'll drag that there. And folks, if you're having trouble setting conditions or setting your operator block inside of that, just remember you want to touch it with the left side, and when it lights up like that, we could drop it in there. And now we can go back to our variables, and we can say change lives. However, if we have a positive number here, then it will increase it, and we want to say -1. So we're using -1 in here. And then the last thing we got to do to test this out is just go into our eggs here and make sure this is stopped. All right, so let's give this a test. And we check our variables. Oh man, we have -25 lives now. So folks, what's happening here is that this is inside of a forever block. So it'll always look for, if touching an egg, then reduce it by -1. And there are a bunch of frames here where our chick is touching our egg. So for basically every frame that it's moving and touching it, it's going to decrease our lives. So we need to change that a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and reset. And in order to make this work the way we want to, we need to use a wait block. So we use this wait 1 second. And I like to change it to 0.5. Anything less than that, and you'll probably still have the same issue. So let's test it now. Lives. Now, there we go. Now we're losing 1 life each. And you can see we could go negative. So we got to have a new sequence that will end the game when we get to 0. So we're going to make a new sequence for that. And we need to say when the green flag is clicked, if our lives equal 0. So we need an equal operator. And if we go into variables, we can drag this little guy around to manipulate what our variable is going to be. So if our lives equal 50, no way, Jose. We need to say if our lives equal 0. And because we're using if, we're going to need another conditional. Folks, it's generally a good rule to put them inside of a forever block. If you are struggling and your condition's not working, put it into a forever block just to see if that changes it, if that helps. Could be a good way to debug. What this means is, usually if it's just a condition, it's going to say, when we hit the green flag, if our lives are 0, then do this. And you'll see right here, when I click the green flag, this is going to flash yellow for a second, and then it's going to stop flashing. See, like that. So in order to get it to stay on, just like this one does, how that one's lit up now around it, in order to get this to work like that, we need to put it in that forever block. So this forever block means it's always checking if our condition is true or false, and then it will only activate when it's true. So if our lives equal 0, then we need to stop everything we're doing. So inside of our control, we can find our stop all block. And we're going to drop that in there, and we'll test that out. So we're going to let these eggs run into us. We're losing lives, and then when we hit this one, it stops everything. Okay? Now, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to make our game a little bit more interactive by clicking on my backdrop and then clicking the Backdrops tab. This will open up our backdrop here, and I'm going to do something real simple. I'm going to duplicate it so we can make a lost screen. So we'll go here and we'll make a text box. So now we can just click anywhere. And I'm just going to type, you lost, sad face. We're going to go ahead and change that to a better color. I like purple, or I guess blue's okay, but let's take it a little bit more purpley. There we go. You lost, so we'll make that nice and big so everybody knows that they are not doing okay at this game. And you can see this little cursor right there. I like to line that up whenever I can, and now we can see it's right here. Okay, because we added a backdrop, I'm going to go ahead and click on my chick again. We're going to need to initialize that backdrop. So I'm going to go into my looks blocks and say switch backdrop when we hit the green flag. When we hit the green flag, we'll switch our backdrop to the original blue sky. So when we do that, boom. And we're going to add our new backdrop into our losing condition. So if our lives equal 0, then we'll switch to our new backdrop that we just made, and we'll stop all. And a reminder, I know I'm moving kind of fast through this, so if you need to see any of it for longer, please go ahead and pause the video, fill in your blocks, and come back to it. That is A-okay. This will be an assignment later on for my students, so if you're watching this for an assignment, feel free to pause it and work through it that way. Okay, there's one more thing I want to do with variables today, and it's super simple. I'm going to set a score for this game. So we need to make a new variable called score. So we're going to go to our variables tab, click on make a variable, and create a score. We're going to use our score to check how many eggs we've jumped over. So just like with our lives here, we're going to initialize our score. So I'm going to grab set lives to 0, and I'm going to put it in here and say set score to 0. That way our score will increase each time, and then when we lose, it'll go back to 0, and we can restart our game. To increase our score, I'm going to make this as easy as possible. Let me move this sequence over here. This is our jump mechanic, so when we hit space, it jumps up by 10, and then it jumps down by 10, technically by 100, because we're repeating 10 times. So when I do that, that's technically 100. So it goes from negative 123 to negative 23-ish. And right in the middle, I'm going to say change lives by 1 and switch this to score. So now if I jump, you can see our score here goes up. But when I hit the green flag, it goes back to 0, so now I can jump over some eggs. Woohoo! And now we have a functioning game. It's more fun when we have a score. It becomes more challenging. Oh, I lost a life though. And we have a level of difficulty with our lives. It's not as hard as it was because we made our eggs smaller, and we added more chances to not lose. So that'll give us more enjoyment out of our game. If you like your games to be harder, you can make the eggs bigger. You can change the amount of lives you have. You can even make them move faster if you wanted to. But here we go. I'll take that L right there, and I lost. So we can see our backdrop pops up. When we restart the game, it's just like that. So, yeah, that's how we can easily change games to have more interactivity, to be more fun. When we have lives and scores and things that you guys would expect in a normal video game, it's nice to do that in our Scratch games just to make them more, I guess, better. More better. I'm going to say it. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you're watching it for an assignment, I hope this really helped you out. Feel free to check out my other Scratch tutorials. I'll be working on more of them as we come. And just like I said, I'm going to try to do a video every week, but sometimes things come up. I know next week we have midwinter break, so I'm going to try to record on a Thursday, but we'll see how that goes. So I hope you guys have a great week, a good weekend if you're watching this on Friday when I upload it. But other than that, I'll talk to you guys later.